Good morning, everyone. Hugo Parra, I'm the Senior Director of Product Management here at StorageCraft. I am responsible with my team of all the products that deal with data protection, both on-prem as well as in cloud. And it's a pleasure to be able to visit with you remotely, not quite the same as being there in person. We were excited to be down with you guys a couple months ago in Caledonia, and we were looking forward to meeting you in person and catching up. But you know, this crazy situation with coronavirus and everything that has happened since then has kept us from really going anywhere. So doing a lot of stuff from home, and but trying to stay in touch with folks like you, make sure that you guys know that what exciting things we're working on, and looking forward to a time when, hopefully November timeframe, when we may see meet with you and be able to catch on a bunch of other stuff. Anyway, what the subject of today's webcast is the cloud journey, and really, I wanted to spend a bit of time talking about what that journey may look like, and obviously each of your journeys is unique. And as I talk to partners and I talk to a lot of people that give us input into and ask questions as to their approach they're taking to it, we realize that there are many paths, and the reason for that is because there are very many varied objectives that the company would have, an organization would have to go into the cloud. So we're going to talk a little bit about what is it that is driving us, and I include StorageCraft in that category to cloud. What paths are we taking to get there? And you know, I think as we go through that, hopefully you can identify which particular path you're on, and is it the right one? How far along in that journey are you? I'd like to spend a few minutes talking as I visit with partners. It's amazing some of the experiences that they're having with their move to cloud, and we've been able to pick up a number of ideas on what things tend to trip some of their steps into the cloud, and also we learned a number of lessons, a number of best practices for folks that have figured out how to get there a little bit faster and with less risk. So I'll share some of that with you, and then the last few minutes I'd like to spend talking about how StorageCraft can be a trusted partner in your journey to adopting more cloud, right? And I expect that will take us most of the time together, but I would encourage you to submit some of the questions that you might have as I go along, and I will try to address at least some of them, either as we go along or towards the end of the presentation, and then as a follow-up as well. But if there are questions that are best addressed in a different setting, we will post those as a follow-up to this presentation. Excellent. Well, let's get started. The first thing that I'd like to talk about are, you know, this is not why the cloud people, this is not the analyst telling you why you should go to cloud. This is actually an answer to the question that is provided by actual people, actual partners, actual customers who have started, or they're somewhere on their journey to the cloud. So when asked that question, why is it? Why are you pursuing that? The number one answer still to this day is cost savings, right? People are under the impression that going to cloud will actually do that. That is closely followed now. It used to be that was a far distance between that and the next, but we're starting to see more folks replying with agility. they view the cloud model as being something that will enable them to more quickly and less costly react to some of the things that their customers are experiencing, and maybe some technological advances that are out there. Now that's followed by innovation. A lot of them feel it like there's an opportunity to expand what they can do for their customers, because there are capabilities that are, that are available there that might not be available to them in other means. And then modernizing. And I'm going to go into a little more detail on some of these guys, but those are the top 4 reasons why people said that. I was curious about the cost savings piece, so I looked at that and I came across that being one of the top myths around the cloud, and it persists even today, in that people believe that cloud always saves money. And I'll tell you that as I looked at some folks, good implementations of cloud, I think always, pretty often, probably more often than not, do save money, and it's a great model. But many are finding out that just going under that premise does not. Right? In fact, there's you'll see some statistics here in just a minute of how going to cloud can actually increase significantly your expense if not done properly. When I was on the topic of myths around the cloud, I was curious, so I picked up this other one where, if you remember a time not too long ago, where people used to, folks used to think of the cloud as just not being secure, and you'll remember a lot of hesitancy to embrace the cloud on the basis that I just can't protect that as well as I can protect my own on-prem system or environment. And somehow, a few years ago, I don't know if it was 4 or 5 years ago, that seemed to have flip-flopped, right? And now people just think, no, the cloud is inherently more secure than anything else. And what is important to remember is that both observations are actually not accurate. It turns out that currently there are less reports, less attacks reported on the cloud, but it's just a matter of where the hackers are concentrating around. I think people need to realize that a lot of the same mechanisms that make their on-prem environment vulnerable apply to the cloud, and it needs to be a serious security needs to be a serious consideration even when it's not the cloud. So as time has gone, and as people become more aware and more mature in their understanding of the cloud, there are kind of a second set of pursuits in the cloud. And so I've listed a few of them here. And as you can see, this can actually align in a more strategic way to a customer's or a partner's business goals, right? Data and the analytics. In fact, some folks are deciding on their cloud platform based on exactly on that, right? What kind of tools they can have to analyzing and doing some interesting things with the data on a specific platform. I remember the days when people say, everything else might move to the cloud, but my databases, will not. I just can't do it. Well, those days are also gone. Right? There are a lot of folks that are moving the entire database management infrastructure with additional capabilities in the cloud. So that's another big driver now. Machine learning and AI are things also that are pretty hot and that people are pursuing in there, and then Internet of Things and bringing edge situations into our cloud. And it's interesting because StorageCraft just launched a product that exactly does that. We're bringing the edge, we're bringing benefits to the edge because of a tight integration with the cloud. And I'm gonna cover that here towards the end of the session, and then blockchain. So a lot of things have changed, a lot of things are in flux, but hopefully you can pick yourself on where, what motivation is prompting you to be looking at a cloud. Now, regardless of what the objectives that you're pursuing, there are a number of paths to getting to the cloud. And so, again, quickly, this might not be new, but just quickly to review here in clockwise, starting from the top left corner here. Probably the simplest approach. And in fact, this was probably where a lot of companies got started with, is that, just rehosting the entire current or a big chunk of the current implementation, the servers, entire thing, just lift and shift to the cloud, right? And the idea with that was that that would allow you to have more flexibility, being able to have much more fluid support for your platform needs or infrastructure needs in the cloud. And the reality is that that turns out to be one of the least disruptive moves when it comes down to how you manage and how you organize yourself to continue to use those services as they move to the cloud. But it also happens to be one of the approaches that tends to not meet the expectation as far as the savings and financially, right? Because a lot of people tend to do it in a rash fashion. So interesting, pros and cons to doing that. The next solution here on the top right is rebuilding, right? And that is spending time saying, no, I just don't want to grab the entire thing and drop it on the cloud. I actually want to take the time to rethink some of the things, maybe leverage some pieces that are native to the cloud, right? Maybe not only the platform, but maybe some capabilities that are available there, and move in that direction. And that's a great approach as well. Improves agility, reduces cost. That's usually what is driving that. The next path to the cloud is replacing a off-the-shelf type of solution by its counterpart that is offered as a service, as an application as a service, right, or software as a service, SaaS. And that has a lot of great benefits, right? In that you don't need to have infrastructure, you need to understand how to implement it, right? You just sign up to a service, and that's provided to you. And there's all kinds of examples where you're seeing those everywhere. You'll see here in just a minute how that has really become, in most cases, probably the larger initiative in many organizations. Again, we'll be sharing some data on that. And then the last route in here, and mind you, there's a lot of overlap among some of these things, and there are all kinds of other ways to break this up. I found this to be a really helpful way to think about it. And if companies that go to the cloud and see it as an opportunity to reinvent themselves, really transform, but once they come to understand what the cloud can do for them, whether it be the ability for them to do analytics, or the way they can reach out to companies, and the long outreach that they can implement with, they can actually take the opportunity to redesign what needs they want to meet and how they want to run the organization. And in that case, you have DevOps working very, very closely with people that are defining the business, right, and trying to make adjustments that will make it more strategic. Now, regardless of what path to market you're taking, I always hear people that say, is this the right approach? Am I going at it in a way that is going to optimize me getting there? And so when people ask that question, disappointingly to most, the answer to that is, well, it really depends what your objective is. Right? And here in a couple of slides, I'm going to talk a little bit about some things that people have done well that enable them to have a very satisfying journey to the cloud. But each, whether it be services, software as a service, or infrastructure as a service, or platform as a service, each one has its very important advantages depending on what the organization wants to do. Right? SaaS, for instance, is a great way for startups, a way for someone to maybe evaluate an application or maybe just an application that is used once in a while, and where you're completely satisfied with how it is already implemented out of the box, right? You don't have a lot of unique requirements that need you to tweak it or change things a lot. Then SaaS in that particular case is the approach. And again, as you can see on the right-hand side here, if you put the amount of the size of the budgets that organizations at large are putting aside for some of these things, SaaS has clearly the lion's share, even up much greater than the other two combined, right? And I think that's just a testament to, you know, you don't need to be an expert about understanding development or understanding implementation. All you need to worry about is that you can have the right access and that the application that you're selecting, that's what you need to do for your business, and then you're up and running. And going with that, same with infrastructure as a service, that gives you the biggest opportunity for you to control a big chunk of the stack, right? If you want to have your hands dirty, you have needs around the operating system and everything above that, then that is the way for you to actually do a lot and have a lot of control on that configuration. And this is exactly what you need, have the most autonomy by that approach. And then platform as a service is kind of somewhere in between, right? You get the middleware, you get the operating system, entire platform provider for you, and people can really concentrate around just developing an application. There's all kinds of fancy tools that they can tap into that make life much simpler, development much faster, and they can do that. So they can do a lot of quick application development without having to worry about maintaining the entire stack below that. So lots of routes, not one clear winner of what's better than the next thing, but regardless of where on that along that journey you might find yourselves, there's different levels of involvement. And I'm going to go super quickly through this, but you know, in the introductory level, people are really finding out how they can use the cloud to benefit their business, where they intersect. They're trying to figure out what leaders understand in their organizations and who's going to sponsor, you know, some of the move to that. And in many cases, they might be evaluating platforms and capabilities, or whether it's SaaS or whether it's, you know, IaaS or something else. The very next step, as people start making some decisions around what they want to do, then they start specializing around some use cases, right? So they hopefully picked up the things that they really see intersect with the value of the cloud, and then they start doing that. And they start morphing the organization a little bit. Some do better than others, by the way, and that's a big factor in the success rate. But that's when people start, organizations to start making governance changes that help them accomplish some of these goals. And by the way, still statistically, most of cloud movers fall between those two and the bottom of number 3 here, where they start looking at coming to realize that just having one cloud platform tends to not be optimal, right? And by the way, I put a little comment here on the right to that because it seems to be a little counterintuitive at first glance, right? I think we all think of consolidating, simplifying as been a key driver to a lot of the things that we strategically plan. But I think that there are a lot of very strong and very valid reasons why a lot of people have come to realize that a world of multiple clouds or infra-cloud is really part of the future. And I've listed some of them here, right? And I think you are probably affected by many of this, right? Including having specific relationships with a cloud provider who give all kinds of incentives through their applications, through their programs to do that. But certainly there are other considerations here, including being able to optimize for a specific application, for a specific workflow, the execution of some service, by hosting them on a particular cloud. And then as you get farther down the stack here, probably in the level 4 of maturity here, people start doing a lot of the multi-cloud options. They become just completely hidden through a self-serve type of catalog-based services, right, that are deployed. And at that point, there's a lot of flexibility and a lot of agility in a system. So let me get to the last couple points that I want to make on the general concepts of cloud before I switch to where we intersect with with that and your plans to cloud and StorageCraft. First, I'd like to talk a little bit about where I come across people that have become either disillusioned with cloud altogether or feel that it's a long ways out, right? They got really excited, they jumped on this thing with both feet, and then started thinking, wow, this is not exactly what it was. And I think the first point here that I come across is the inability to execute, and part of this is just that the expectation was set incorrectly, and so they're having executives, they're having their board, they're having owners constantly say, hey, how come we haven't done this? How come we keep spending on this or that? And that just has a tendency to jam the system and distract, right, the efforts around what they want to go. The second here is that a lot of organizations are finding out that their core competencies in the IT organization do not match across completely to working on the cloud. And a lot of that has to do around security, around compliance, and other aspects of it, right? Either because they didn't think that it was going to matter, or because they just, they just didn't make the mapping from one to the other, and that tends to also have all kinds of issues for them. The next issue that is being reported that I come across a lot is that there was a time, and it's not long ago, that a lot of organizations had this became convinced that their strategy had to be cloud first at all costs, right? So don't give it a second thought. Run as fast as you can. Overcome every obstacle. We've got to get everything to the cloud, and we're finding out that is not always the best approach, and that's being replaced with Cloud Smart, which is a much more balanced approach to that. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. There's, I think, a lot of partners and a lot of folks that are going to the cloud have become perplexed by the amount of options that they're always coming out. You never seem to get on top of it. When you have your own data center or your own on-prem environment, there are certain goals you want to achieve, and then when you get there, you kind of sit on that and shepherd for a little bit, right? But it seems like when you're on one of these platforms, there's always things that are new, that are changing things, and it just seems like they're always playing catch up, and that tends to be a huge distraction. And then just lastly, organizational mismatch. Again, that includes objectives. But are the objectives to why we're going to the cloud matching and align with what you want to accomplish to business? So here are some of people that have been successful at either overcoming some of those pitfalls or have avoided most of them, tend to do these things. And these are pretty strong recommendations. Some of these guys may sound simple and obvious, but it's amazing, people that I talk to who don't have some of these simple steps in place, and they are pretty much primed to go through a cycle of disappointment. Number one thing is to set clear expectations. And this is something that needs to be done with people at all levels in the organization, making sure they understand exactly what financial benefits come from that. And estimates are that 3 in 4 get those estimates wrong, right? And so it's critical. So no wonder that one of the hurdles, one of the pitfalls is that you never meet expectations. It's impossible. If you haven't set those properly, then you're just bound to do that. Identify what risks are going to be there. You need to have a plan to how to overcome that, and be very honest about assessing your data skill, right? The skill of your both the technical and the business skill to go to the cloud. At least identify where there might be some gaps and then plan accordingly to backfill into some of those pieces. And there's no question that going to the cloud will bring some changes to your IT organization, best practices, etc. And so it's good to have that discussion, be ready for that, and plan for it. Then we have the whole idea of the people that have done well here, organizations have done well. They actually embrace the concept of governance and planning for that. One of the things that some successful companies have done, because not everybody has the resource to go and go hire a team of gurus on the cloud. But what they've done is they kind of centralize the people that are familiar, have a desire to learn about it, and they have found that team becomes a strong asset for them in helping make all kinds of decisions, right? And consider things that could happen or that need to take that need attention. Many of them have called them Cloud Center of Excellence. They have other names for these things, tiger teams of sorts that come together, and they help. Also, it's very helpful to identify the leadership that is going to happen, and in some cases, even a champion, right, that makes some of the tough calls. A lot of people become paralyzed by all the options, and it's important to have a person that after the right info around cloud has been gathered, they can say this is what we're going to do. By the way, I thought this very interesting. Obviously, the changes to taking something to the cloud require different roles, but some folks have found it very helpful to actually change the titles, just to underscore the importance of thinking differently about your IT job. Is more of a cloud operations job, and that's helpful to many. Just feeding up to some of these other ones, it's really important to figure out what to take to cloud, and everything to cloud, or just figure out as we go along is not a very good strategy. So having that governance team help prioritize the workload and the recommendation, I think it's been there a while, and I think it's still a good starting place is to think about applications that can allow a move that is speedy, that is simple, and that actually has good impact on the value of your business, right? I don't think that's the only thing that should be done, but certainly it's a good starting place. Start with the low-hanging fruit and go in there. People that don't do that, people that don't even do that basic analysis are finding out that 45% they over-provision the service that they bring it over. And when they over-provision, they can over-provision by about 55%. Right? So it's quite wasteful to skip some of this stuff, this step, 70% overspend. Right? If you are not doing a little bit of thinking of what to take over, if you're taking it first cloud, all cloud, then you're bound to make some of these painful mistakes. And then if we look at the last best practice for this is to keep things simple, right? Again, we talked about all these different gadgets, all these different capabilities that are constantly coming into the cloud, and people that are trying to absorb all that at once find themselves in an endless effort to get even to the first base, right? And so define companies, organizations that have done well here have defined what success looks like, and then they go and want to achieve it. And then not only after attain certain phases of success, they start looking at changing some of those things to take advantage of other things that come to them. Here's the whole concept of cloud smart, right? It's balancing what you want to accomplish, what makes sense based on your circumstances and your goals, right? Not just blindly say everything needs to go to cloud. Seems to be something that works well. So hopefully, as I covered that, you were able to identify sort of where you fit in your strategy, your goals for going to the cloud, and where you might be at in that process. You might have identified some of the pain points that I talked about as being something that you are currently facing. And maybe some of the ideas on how to avoid some of those pitfalls may have resonated, maybe giving you an idea of what something that you might want to consider introducing in your efforts as you go to cloud. What I'd like to wrap up with here is a discussion on why StorageCraft and what are some of the benefits of having a partnership like ours, you and us, in your to help in your journey to the cloud. And to introduce that, I'm going to talk briefly, just very briefly, about a few products. But I'd like to emphasize here that increasingly, StorageCraft has been making a huge investment in cloud-related technologies and providing services and solutions that are erasing the boundaries between what we could do on-prem and what we expect and are doing on the cloud, and whether it be the things that we're protecting or where we're protecting them to and the way that we're protecting them, all have cloud have become part of the DNA of not just what we do today, but the roadmap that we do that. So to give you an example of that, we have come to understand that what our customers, there are two aspects of what our customers and partners want us to do. One is what they want protected. Right? It's not just virtual, it's not just physical, it's everything they care about. It's not just machines, but it's data, structure and structure. It's not just typical applications, but even SaaS, right? And all kinds of applications and all kinds of things that they care about. And not only that, but they become more rich in in the places where they want those things protected. It's not just in the data center. It's not just in places where they have a lot of infrastructure presence, but on the edges, the customers. I would find more and more partners that are picking up partners of every shape and size and capabilities, and no one is too small, no one is too remote to be able to do that. And then also increasingly moving things to all kinds of options in the cloud. Right? And in our effort to protect that is how we have designed a stack of services that function as a common platform that provide consistent types of services for each one of these different platforms, all being managed by one interface, which we call one system. This is a cloud-based, cloud-hosted central management. And we've introduced this. We just launched this to market. We've been testing it for a long time. Some of you might have been part of our beta. We just launched that management console a few weeks ago, and we're taking that to cover more and more of our solutions as we go forward. So specifically, you have heard that we introduced a product called ShadowSafe, and one of the pieces of ShadowSafe was that it would do a much better job, give more options for how to protect VMs. Right? So we always have been proud, and we will always remain a strong offering for agent-based protection. You saw that with Shadow Protect and SPX, and many of you guys business have become dependent, and for good reason, on the reliability and the efficiency of agent-based protection, and we brought that forward with ShadowSafe. We added the other half of that equation, which is being able to protect VMs without having to deploy an agent to every machine. And with that came a whole range of benefits, right, and possibilities for us to be able to protect things, to replicate not just to local in our own data center, but yours and even the cloud. And so this has opened a number of opportunities for taking things to the cloud, across clouds, etc. One example of that is the work that we've done to extend the capabilities of our instant recovery capability, which used to be limited to just a couple things, is SMBs, SMB storage destinations. Now we can virtual boot from any destination, and we have improved the expediency in which it can do it. We have made it smarter, a lot more intelligent, so that it can select the information that the app loading machine will require and the applications that are running on it. We made it so that at the end of virtual booting, you can actually conclude the process and bring the rest of the information and close that and be basically fail back, right, without having to do an extra hop to get back to your original primary storage utilization. So lots of things that basically, again, bring together the on-prem restore with all different types of cloud offerings. Hopefully, most of you are familiar with our cloud service offering, and for a long time, this has been based on our own data centers throughout the world, and there's the ability for any of our partners to be able to provide disaster recovery as a service and to any of their customers, but just selling this service to them, right? And it's great. What you'll see us announcing soon is that we're taking those capabilities to Google Cloud, and the ability for us and you to take advantage of some of the benefits that I spoke earlier around why it makes sense to offer some of those capabilities on some of those public cloud offerings. And the important part is that as our customers and our partners consume that, to them it's just it'd be disaster recovery as a service, right? The benefits that come with running on that particular platform, Google in this case, Google Cloud, will become evident without them knowing, having to worry, without you having to get worried about, different pricing options, different, other impact of running on a different platform will not affect you other than the elasticity that offering will provide to our solution. Many of you know about our cloud backup offering. As we looked at, we used to offer, we still have a solution to backup Exchange and to be able to recover more granularly from Exchange. Well, guess what? We saw a big move from many organizations and partners and their clients going to a SaaS alternative for what used to be running on Exchange. And so we introduced this product to be able to do exactly that, right? Being able to protect that, those SaaS products. We have that for G Suite. We have that for Office 365. We're looking at other things, other SaaS applications to bring into that fold. But not only that, at that point, we also allowed you to be able to store this data in AWS and Azure. We're adding Google Cloud to that as well. And the idea for that is that we know that's the direction things are going. We know that our partners, we know that our customers want to land in some of those platforms, and we're going to be here to help you do that without having to know all the ins and outs of how to do that. The solutions that we introduce will just get you there. Lastly, the last part that I'll mention here is this OneXafe Solo appliance that we just announced a couple weeks ago. And what is novel about it is that it has the power of ShadowSafe, right, which is a pretty amazing way of protecting an environment and tracking and monitoring everything that is happening in that environment in order for it to be protected. But with a delivery of that value through a very small appliance. This is under 5 inches by 5 inches by 2 inches tall. And by deploying that into a remote location, you basically are taking the best in class data protection to that, and you're tying it to the cloud. Right? So whereas you have a number of options to where to store that data information, including some local options, you always have available to you our disaster recovery as a service option, so that any number of workloads, any number of VMs, any number of machines can be virtualized in an orchestrated fashion onto our cloud. So you remove a lot of the things that limited smaller sites, smaller customers, smaller remote locations that kept them from being able to do this kind of high-end type of data protection and disaster recovery by just deploying a simple appliance. And then here to the left, you see this cloud one system that is part of that. That with Solo, we decided to launch at the same time this cloud-hosted approach to managing the data protection and the appliance itself, so that our partners and customers don't have to worry about implementing that particular management solution. All they need to do is go to the cloud, sign up as as a tenant in there, and then from there log in there and be able to manage everything they care about. Our very first product in there is OneXafe Solo. That's what we just announced and launched, and then we're bringing under that same cloud-hosted management, ShadowSafe, OneXafe, here in just a couple more months. And then later in the year, you'll see some of the other cloud backup and then cloud services come into that fold as well. The point here is that we know that our customers care about cloud. We know that our partners have initiatives around cloud. There are real benefits, right? And this translates into value, tangible value to our partners. And so we are committed to be able to bring these solutions with the simplicity of one platform, the simplicity of one management, single pane of glass management to that, and then being able to have all kinds of options for different cloud, including our own, right? And some of our services running on some of the public clouds as well. We know that that just aligns with the goals and objectives that our partners and customers have with us. So with that, let me just kind of wrap up with what we've discussed today. As you can see, we have a pretty complete, a pretty full set of offerings that are part of our portfolio that allow us to cover a very wide range of needs and to align with a very rich set of objectives when it comes to cloud. I hope that you can think about your own journey into the cloud and find where the intersect with the products that we offer can best help you accomplish those objectives, right? And be able to get you there without having to relearn some of the lessons that we ourselves and many other partners that we work with have learned, right? And try to have that journey be there as smooth sailing as possible. So with that, I think that I'm going to just check for any particular questions that we were having here. But just a couple of them. One of the questions is interesting. COVID-19. Do we think that this will stimulate more cloud, more people moving to cloud? I actually think we're seeing this, right? And I think every vendor, by the way, is being careful about how much of our messaging is based on COVID. I think we know that this is a real situation, a very serious situation, right? And whereas it could lend itself to some opportunistic, solutions, we also know that it's very sensitive. But the reality is, even as we release Solo, when we design, and I was very involved in the definition of Solo, which one of the capabilities of that appliance is that it can directly back up to cloud, and also when you deploy this appliance, a partner can just through the distribution decide that they want that they need that appliance to be deployed directly to the customer location, so they don't even have to carry the appliance there, right? And then we design it so that when it gets plugged by anyone, right? It's a small appliance, 5 by 5 by 2. Anyone can just plug it to power, plug it to the network, and this thing will just call home. And you can think about what it takes to get all these moving parts to work, but I think we were successful at it. It'll call home and it'll find out through our databases who placed that order, to go where, what partner has entitlement, so that when that partner goes to one system and logs into one system, first thing they'll see in there, once they authenticate it, is that this appliance is ready to be activated, right? There'll be a little flashing icon, and they click on that. There might be 1, there might be 5 of them, and they say, I just want to activate it. And when we designed this thing, we spent a lot of time getting this right. We're thinking, people just want to do this because they don't want to spend the time. Their margins are important. Their efficiencies are important. They don't want to have to go and make a visit to every single of these partners and plug it and all this other stuff. And so for efficiency and all this stuff, it just makes sense to emphasize this model of deployment and operation. Lo and behold, a year and a half later, as we were just launching this, just weeks before, we had this crazy epidemic hit this, and now there's additional incentive for people to deploy things in that fashion, for the cloud to be there, for things to just appear, and someone from their home can hit one system, because it's all cloud, and be able to manage things that they need to without ever having to set foot in some of those environments. So I would say yes. I think we're seeing a lot of demand also for cloud backup, which is the ability to, I think if anyone ever had questions about Office 365 and some of those SaaS tools, ways to do things, I think they're finding out that they have more and more people working from home, that those are solutions that really come in to help those the workforces be productive wherever they are, and with that come the requirement for things like cloud backup with Office 365 protection and G Suite protection and things of that sort. So a long answer to your question, but yes, I think some of these things are going to naturally push some of our customers to be there. All right. Well, I think we are kind of running out of time, and what I'd like to do is just wrap up and just say, if you have follow-up questions that you would like to send our way, Peter, a good friend of ours, you can write them to that, and we will get back to you. And I look forward to a chance to meet in the second half, maybe toward the latter part of this year, and be able to catch up and tell some good stories, and keep our relationship and partnership going forward. With that, thank you for your time. I hope it was well spent, and look forward to next time. Thanks, everyone.